what's blue, what's fun, and can actually perform very well? Buuuub. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. Here we are. We have Buuuub. Now, Buuuub is a very, very fun deck. It is quite a meme in a way, because a lot of the times, if your opponent can just keep spinning their Z energy for later game, you probably won't get all the full effects of the deck. But in general, this actually does a lot of damage to your opponent, and it has some cool little control things in it. So, we'll start with the leader. When this card attacks, draw 1, and then to awaken, all you have to do is have 2 or more energy. You play your Z battle card, which we'll get to. You get to draw 1, switch 1, go to 6, and then flip this over. And what you're doing is you're playing this Z battle card. So this is a really cool card in general as well. It's very easy to get the effects off. You just have to sequence right to get the right amount of Z energy to your opponent in time for your ability for this to pop off. It's a blocker, Z stack 1. You put the Buuuub 3 cost underneath this one. And what this card is doing is, if your leader is a blue Buuuub, your opponent has a Z leader, who is a Z leader, has 3 or more Z energy, or has a Z battle card in play, and this card would be removed from the battle area. You may play 1 Buuuub with an energy cost of 3 from under this card on top of the card in active mode instead. So that is really essential, but you want to make sure you have 3 or more Z energy for your opponent. When this card is played, your opponent draws 1, then adds 1 card from their hand to their Z energy. So now they're at 4. And then when you would block with the Boo and you would lose it, you get this card on top. When this card is played, it gains barrier for the turn. If your leader is a blue Buuuub and it's your turn, when one of your opponent's cards is added to their Z energy, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards from their battle area or drop and add it to its owner's Z energy. So that is really damn good to do that every turn. And then you get the Activate Battle here. This is a cool Activate Battle. If you remember with the Gamma deck, you had the 17-18 Unison where you could boost with a card from your drop every single turn. This is the same thing. If your opponent has 3 or more Z energy and you have an Buuuub in battle, place up to 2 cards from your top of your deck to your drops. You don't have to. Then use up to 1 mono blue card with 5k combo power from your drop in a combo with its skills negated for the turn. So that's a really cool effect to get popping off. And then for the deck itself, for the awakened side of the leader, when this card attacks, draw 1. Additionally, if this card attacks your opponent's leader and there are no cards in your opponent's combo area, at the beginning of that damage battle step, draw 1. So you're drawing 2 with this leader every turn if they're not comboing. So, and on top of that, activate main, add up to 1 battle card in your opponent's drop to their Z energy. So you can also just shut off their Sparking 5 for a lot of their counters if they're using them. It's actually a really cool effect to be able to use. So now for the deck itself, we have Mr. Boo. Now you want to probably get 1 in your drop as well, as early as possible. This is a really handy card. I try to, on turn 1, if I don't have much else to do, I try to play this to draw 1, and then attack with leader, and then combo with this card. Essentially, the reason why is, if your leader is a blue Buuuub, and your opponent has 3 or less Z energy, when this card is used in a combo, your opponent draws 1, then adds 1 card from their hand to their Z energy. So unfortunately, that's the one downside about the deck for it, is that you're filtering your opponent's hand a bit. Just like using Vegeta Disciplined Warrior. It's more or less, it's annoying that you get to give them the right cards in hand and get rid of the others, but eventually they're going to start drawing and only have good cards in hand, and they won't realize it until later, so they start having to add their good cards to their Z energy. But for the rest, we have this for if you have 2 or more energy, you have yourself a 15k blocker on field, and when this card is played, you and your opponent draw 1, and then your opponent adds 1 card from their hand to their Z energy. Then we also have this Buuuub, Warrior Left on Earth. Now, this card I play a little less of. I try to specifically just play the 6 costs and the 8 costs, but this is a pretty cool card too, because if your leader is blue and you have 2 or more energy, play this card from your hand. When this card attacks, use up to 1 mono blue card with 5k combo power in your drop with its skills negated for the turn. So you can help charge your own Z energy. And also, you attack with it. This will be in rest mode, so you're a 20k single hit to your opponent. Then you can use Union Absorb. If your leader is a blue Buuuub, your opponent has 5 or more Z energy, and you place 1 Mr. Boo from your drop under this card, play up to 1 Buuuub with an energy cost of 6 from your deck on top of this card in active mode, then shuffle your deck. That's a very good effect. So I don't use it that often. Sometimes I just see the 6 cost or 8 cost in hand and I'll just play it itself that way. But if you want more damage, this is a good route to go. And then we also have the other version. It's the same thing, but it costs 2, and then you get your 8 cost instead from your deck. Now, the cool thing is, here's the 6 costs. It has a cool permanent, first of all. If it's your turn, and this card would be under a leader, the leader on top of this card gets minus 5k and can't be removed from the leader area by skills other than this card's. So, at the end of your turn, you would place this card underneath your opponent's leader, and then it gets minus 5k. And then to play this, it only costs 1 energy, and if your opponent has 2 or more energy. So it's very simple to do. But the effect for this is really dope. It is when this card is played from your hand or deck, add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. Choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, add it to its owner's Z energy. Place this card in the battle area under your opponent's leader at the end of your turn, then play this card from under your opponent's leader at the start of your main phase. So you get to do that one time where you get to minus your opponent's leader by 5 for that turn. The only thing that sucks about it is you can't like recycle it. Imagine if you could just keep putting that every turn under your opponent's leader. That would be so powerful. And then the 8 drop here itself. This is a deflect 30k double strike. And reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 3 for each card in your opponent's Z energy. So essentially, if they have 2 Z energy, which is so easy to do, they'll do that themselves usually. This is a 2 cost 30k deflect double strike. And then if your leader is blue and your opponent has 3 or more energy, when this card is played, draw 1, choose up to a total of 3 cards in your opponent's battle area or drop, add them to the owner's Z energy. And then if your opponent has you and your opponent have a total of 7 or more Z energy, when your opponent activates a counter, they add 1 card from their hand to their Z energy. This card is so good. So I usually do this turn 3 and then turn 4, and if there's a turn 5, I pop it out turn 5 as well. It's so easy to play, and it's very powerful. And then of course, because of the Buuuub, when it is removed from the battle area by a skill, you get to play this for free. And this is a 20k blocker. It's got a lot of value for that. And if you block and it would stay alive, so let's say you use a super combo to keep it alive, you get to, once per turn, restand it. So you have a double blocker. And then we have ourselves here the Goku Buuubs, the promos. This is a 1 cost, dual attack 15k, and it's got a really cool ability here. When this card is played, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 5 or less, return it to its owner's hand. Look at the top 5 cards at the top of your deck. Add up to 1 Earthling or World Tournament, both with an energy cost of 4 or less among them to your hand, and shuffle your deck. So you're pretty much being able to find any of these cards, your Earthlings here. And yeah, it's very easy to do. It's very simple. I usually see a lot of draws from it, but not all the time. But it's still, in general, it's very good. I have been considering changing the super combos of this to that Buuuub one, because that way I can also be able to search for it. But I do find that this card is very easy to do, because I usually have 2 Z energy by turn 2. So this is already live for me. Then we have the Mortals Be Gone. So this is usually something you see around turn 3 onwards that you're going to be able to play. I try to play it more defensively to my opponent. Reason being is what you can do is like use a dimension magic, restand an energy, and then you can, if you have 3 or more Z energy yourself, you can activate battle, pay 1, play this card. When this card is played, draw 1, choose one of your opponent's battle cards that's 4 or less, place it at the bottom of its owner's deck. So if your opponent's attacking you with a 4 cost card, you would just activate battle, play this, get rid of their card. So you just stop the attack for the turn. And then we have 3 Defending Friends. If you happen to have them, they're staples for a lot of blue players. So this is a more expensive version of the deck that I've been playing, and it is so damn good for the deck. If you don't know it already, it's pretty much a mini topo. So if your opponent would attack, they have to choose 1 card in their hand and place it at the bottom of their deck each time. And then we have 2 full strength absorptions. This is a really cool counter, but it's limit 1, so we only run 2 copies here. You get to negate the attack. Additionally, if your opponent has 4 more Z energy, you get to draw 1. And you can use this as a free counter as well if you place a Mr. Boo from your hand into your drop. So that's very easy to do. We have, 8 copies of Mr. Boo here. We got 3 Sensu Beans just to help defensively as well. We have 2 Absolute Release Balls, just a good little counter against your opponent when they're trying to start setting up their board for those annoyances. We have our 4 Super Combos here. We have the 1 of Agents of Destruction. This is more for if you're playing a later game and your opponent's trying to stall you out. This is a really good annoying card to play for your opponent. But then you want to just be careful that you're not tapping your... Like, make sure you have a Dimension Magic in hand if you're going to go defensive for that next turn. And then we also have the Vegito Volley Attack. This is that new promo overround. This is really good for the deck because we don't have that much barrier removal. So essentially you're using this as your barrier removal. And if your opponent has 2 or more energy, when an opponent's battle card is KO'd by this card's attack, switch it to active mode and you get the permanent here. This card can attack your opponent's battle cards in active mode. So that is very handy. And then for ultimate of choice, I've gone with the Son Gohan. Obviously you can go with Hachiyak or whatever else you want to use. Maybe even Radiant Saiyans if you wanted to. But I do find that this is very handy for the deck because you can make them crit a life. So if you want to go for endgame, it just helps you push that little bit more. And also you can use this to help restand your Buuuub and then swing for a second double strike 30k. And then for the Z deck itself, we have this Buuuub Z leader. It costs 3 Z energy, which is very heavy. But this Z leader is so damn good. When this card attacks, draw 1, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and add it to its owner's Z energy. So you can remove their field every attack. If your opponent has 5 or more Z energy, choose 1 of your Buuuub battle cards, which is the Z battle card that you have, and you can switch it to active mode. So it's a dual attacker then. And then activate battle. This is a cool effect, but I don't get to see it that often, unfortunately. Getting to 10 Z energy is a little tricky because your opponent's paying attention to it. But if you happen to get it, that's great. Once per turn, if your opponent has 10 or more Z energy, this card gets 10k power and double strike. And the fact that it's activate battle is pretty cool as well. So you can just scare them out of it. And then for the rest of the Z deck, we have the Barris. This is just for that little extra barrier removal. And then we have Cell just to help clear that field if they're just rushing you too quick. And then, of course, if this is that little bit too expensive for you, then you can always drop a few copies and you've got Chilled Armies for other replacements. However, I find that the Defending Friends really does carry the deck a lot for its defense. I think it does for most blue in general. But yeah, this is the deck. And I think for turns 1, 2, and 3, you're trying to make sure you get your 1Z energy. You want to boost with this on turn 1. Then you could already add this to your Z energy if you wanted to. You want to try and get yourself to 2 energy so you could play this card. Then you can awaken with your leader. Now on turn 3 or 2, you can play your Mr. Boo. So you got yourself a little blocker on field and you're starting to add cards to their Z energy. That's more or less your goal. And it will just happen as a very smooth flow with the deck anyway. Turn 3, try to pump out one of these, and possibly even one of these if you can. And then, yeah, you just start swinging for damage to your opponent. And then for little tech things you can use as well is like Goku Buuuub. You can use that as defensively, as we showed before. And yeah, that's more or less the deck. You'll just rinse and repeat. You try and get yourself maybe one of these on the field, go to one of these or one of these. And that's more or less the deck. It's so simple, but it is so much fun. Especially when you get to like a turn, if it is a late game and you get to like turn 5 or 6, and you see your opponent has like 13 Z energy, then it's so funny to just see them run out of cards to keep playing from their Z energy. And then yeah, it does a lot of damage. The deck is a lot of fun. I highly recommend trying it out. I made another video previously of a more budget version. If you're interested, you can check it out. I'll have it in the link down below. Same for this deck profile. I'll put it down below if you're interested. And yeah, that's the list. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I greatly appreciate it. And thanks for watching. Peace.